Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Sit Down on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. And with me is one of our contributing editors and financial whiz and guru. Somebody that's going to kind of give us some context around where public private financing and how it all works in college sports. We're going to talk about that today. So I'm going to introduce Fergie. How are we doing today, Fergie?
Nathan, I'm doing good. I'm glad things have settled in my life so that I can be back with you and we can talk about some fun stuff on the off season.
Right. I'm glad you didn't have to go to the Middle East. That trip would have been scary.
Yeah, it'll happen sometime soon, but definitely the timing was wrong.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Let's pray for peace, right? Let's hope that doesn't
Yes.
happen again.
Yes.
Today's show, and I'll create a banner and everything. Today's show is going to be about public schools, private money, the PPP play. So first of all, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of why this is your area of expertise and maybe some of the stuff we might talk about this afternoon.
Well, obviously, I'm a Colorado fan, and what I do in normal life is I manage projects in sometimes the public sector, sometimes the private sector, so that we can build things like sports complexes or playgrounds or other activities. And also have been involved in obviously what's happening at Colorado to make sure that we get off the mat and get back to something of importance. And I just see that the college football landscape is changing dramatically. I've observed these partnerships occur when it comes to creating a hotel, when it comes to creating a dorm, when it comes to creating other events. Boulder's going to do a big film festival now from now on. So things are happening, and the only way they happen usually is public-private partnerships because the public takes too long, and then sometimes the private gets it wrong. So if we can balance the two and discuss like what Kentucky is currently undertaking and what I think Colorado should consider, it'll be great. And having you as the BYU guy who can remain a private institution, a lot of things that a public institution faces, like FOIA requests or
Right.
issuing their annual payroll report. I think there's a lot that can be benefited from not being so publicly facing when these moves are having to happen with paying players and making improvements and seeing where the realignment lands.
I could not agree with you more. I think it should be a little bit, if anything, just entertaining, informative, and certainly we can do more of these shows as people watch this video later. I'm not sure the day that we're going to put this out. I got to talk to Moen about post production, but hopefully it not only answers questions but spurs other questions, gets
Yes.
people involved in the conversation. That's what we try to do around here, which is why I'm so grateful they were able to spend some time with us. Make sure before I'll do this at the beginning and at the end, make sure you follow both of us on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to this College Football Mafia channel on YouTube. Turn on your notifications when we have new videos, and always leave comments and questions. And we try to do feedback and respond to your ideas and things you care about. So you give me a bunch of really targeted questions, and I love all of them. The one that I think we just want to set the baseline with is out of left field, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe it's been a month. This idea of an LLC to manage the University of Kentucky in the Southeastern Conference, manage their NIL and their player money, and how that works with operations. Can you kind of give us why is that the exemplar now, and kind of what does it mean in today's college football?
Yeah, and I've been talking about this for over 2 years. And early on, I looked like a crazy person. Then I started becoming more clear that it could and need to be happening as the House settlement
Right.
moved on. And then once Kentucky pulled the trigger and created an LLC, essentially got unanimous approval to move their athletic department. I'm actually not even the whole athletic department fan. I'm a fan of just football or just basketball, but they did the whole thing. That's awesome. And I've watched. I immediately read in depth about it. I watched some folks talk about it in the Kentucky area, and the number one thing they felt is that the current environment, they could not function as a small part of the public school because they needed more flexibility. They might need protection from antitrust. They want to operate more efficiently and have more expertise involved. They want to be more creative to increase revenue. They immediately said that this would unlock 8 to 10 new revenue sources that they would not have been allowed to acquire within the public setting. There is going to be obviously a better way to pay players. The LLC, Kentucky's LLC, will be, and it's Champions Blue is what it's called, will be who will pay their players. So the University of Kentucky is not going to cut a check and take out the taxes and offer the benefits. And even they went into kind of the weeds. A public employee has a lot of rights and a lot of added advantages if you were an employee of the university. So they just felt it made a lot of sense to check off a lot of troublesome issues that would occur within a public institution. They pointed out that it is kind of bubbling at other places. They mentioned Kansas. Kansas is a very aggressive institution. Their new stadium, their new entertainment district, a lot of what they've accomplished at Kansas all happened in a public-private partnership.
The public partner and private partner are exist in dual worlds, but they run parallel to one another. One question that was outstanding that when the Kentucky thing first came up, I asked Mitt Winter, who's obviously one of the consigliaries around here, a legal wizard, somebody who really knows the sports math when it comes to legal issues and everything that goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him point blank whether an LLC would shield or in any way block from the University of Kentucky liabilities associated with these player contracts and everything that goes around funding. And he said absolutely not. It's not a way for a university to basically screen itself off from responsibility, as it were. So how do you see what is the biggest upside and what's the biggest downside to doing something like this?
There's definitely some areas that are going to take, sadly, whether it's litigation or some type of ruling. I believe they're going to create some separation. I believe if they choose to, or if any institution chooses to, they can remain a little bit more private and confidential on FOIA reports and stuff like that. But there's no doubt, and in my vision, the public-private partnership, the university will still be the majority shareholder, the majority entity. It's their brand, it's their facilities, it's them that are putting it out there. But I think when you think about building a dorm or you think about doing something, you're bringing in expertise and you're bringing in people that are going to be smart enough to position things, create contracts, and create opportunities where, the hopefulness is you're not going to be doing anything wrong, hopefully, in the eyes of the majority. And you also are going to maybe be better positioned for whether it's Congress or somebody to get involved, or your state legislature to get involved. Because if you make this move, you better have your state legislature on
Right.
board to make sure that it happens. But and we could get into what school's current situation. Colorado as a whole has actually tragically gone less into public education over the last 20, 30 years, by choice and by a constitutional effort to be very balanced budget and to be very, kind with tax dollars. But I think that is what another reason to look at the private public private partnerships to be able to create those revenues. And your guy's point is very legit. Kentucky admitted that it's a move that they made to also start vetting some of how will it play out with the House, how will it play out with NIL, how will it play out with payroll. There's no doubt the players are going to need to have representation to make them understand why could we not have medical benefits,
Right.
disability benefits. So there's so much to figure out. The only thing I have an attitude about, I do not have all the answers, but I have a passion to see college football get on a better footing, get more balanced, uh, just help more schools and the public private school, not just the partnership, but the school relationship. What SMU has done in the ACC is not talked about enough. I mean, they essentially bought their way into the ACC because they said that's the best play for us.
Right.
Nobody has any idea what SMU's complete budget looks like or their financing. They have some amazing boosters like Texas Tech who have more money then they know what to do with, and they wanted to make this happen. So we can try to figure out where is this going to really be an advantage. I see enough advantages versus disadvantages right now, but getting those disadvantages figured out or having someone not drag them back down legally would be disappointing because I think it has to happen.
You mentioned in the open that it is an open question, the value that an athlete might bring to a state or even a private school from an NIL or at least brand perspective,
Mhm.
versus what are the real costs to run a government in the United States today? You have all kinds of public salaries, the usually of state universities. You have coaches that are making more than every other employee in that particular state. Kyle Whittingham's making 6.5 million, something like that,
Yep.
which means I'm paying his salary even though he's coaching a rival to my school. So
Correct.
these conflicts, is there a breaking point or is it a bottomless pit? Because this is something that it's not going to be just settled today between you and I. I am going to become a champion of this idea that debt spending is become normalized, and I hate every bit of it. The bailouts at Arizona and Arizona State,
Yeah.
the concern of not bailouts at Iowa State, just to name a few. There's other programs. I know Washington and not Oregon, but Washington, Washington State, most of the Pac-12 schools, in fact,
Yeah.
debt spend and debt spend and debt spend, and then now they're like, hey, we want a free pass, clear us of our debts, and we'll move right down the line.
Yeah. Well, I'd look at it as buckets. In theory, you have a tax bucket that you have the most responsibility for. In Colorado, we have a law called Tabor. We must have a balanced budget. Anything excess does not get kept, it gets sent back to us. We get a tax refund in the state every year because of how hard they try to balance the budget. So that's our tax budget that they apply to the public schools. Then you have the endowments. We kind of act like these are all the same buckets. The endowment was given by donors and other factors that benefactors that say use this to build an engineering building or do this to improve the theater or
Right.
whatever it is. And I do know that there is a small allotment for sports, like even in our endowment I think it was like 17 or 18%. So you could dip into the endowment and do certain things. But your point about paying the coaches seems so above and beyond a public trust and
Right.
even an endowed trust. And we're working on that in a different way at Colorado. And yes, Coach Prime is by far $10 million a year, the highest paid Colorado public employee as of today. I prefer he was paid by a new entity that would just look more professional, look more enterprising. I like the word enterprise. I used to have that at another city I worked with where they took their golf program and they took their aquatics programs and tried to set them aside and made them balance their budgets, which I love that idea. I love the idea of a balanced budget. So your point about the pressure, there is a lot of pressure. People out loud who are academics, even though they're not as loud as they used to be, or maybe they're silenced. The idea that your football coach and now every player or a majority of players are going to make more than your president or your researchers or whoever, it just feels like those people are entertainers. I had an analysis with someone the other day, and the first thing that came to mind was Juilliard. And my idea was that if you go to Juilliard and you're an amazing dancer, performer, musician, your goal is to get better at Juilliard to then go be at concerts and to sell tickets at a concert to make you a lot of money based on your value.
Yeah.
And then you might have a social media presence. And then you might be in Hamilton or whatever it might be. And your income is whatever it needs to be. I consider football players entertainers, high quality performers, and they should not be state employees. They should be compensated for every dollar that they're worth to themselves and to whatever entity they're with. Hamilton's an example. If the people who are going back out for the 10-year Hamilton reunion are some of the greatest actors and stars, since the beginning, and if they make a ton more money, I love it. I'm going to go see it if I could. So the football programs and the basketball and whoever can generate a performer's value. You know, we have concerts at this field that Folsom Field. We
Right.
just put turf on it because we want to do 10 more concerts, and you can't do it with grass on it.
Evidently, that's become the Big 12 thing. I was just talking to Tim Fitzgerald, and evidently Kansas State's doing it, and
Mhm.
Oklahoma State just had one. Boise State just had one with Jelly Roll and
Exactly.
Post Malone. And I mean, it's becoming a bit of a carnival barker type of an atmosphere. I hear
Agreed.
this thing out of nowhere, the Boise State news, and then I find out today there's 3 or 4 other schools that I just need the money so bad
But
that they
that
have to do
situation,
that.
so Nathan, that concert situation is a public-private partnership. The University of
Sure.
Colorado is going to hire either Live Nation or whoever
Hmm.
to promote concerts at Folsom Field, and it's
Right.
going to take a part of the revenue. So that's what's happening. We do marathons in and out of the stadium. We're going to do film festivals. We're going to do as much as we can because we need that revenue. And in theory, the school's okay with the idea that that is a majority athletic department revenue
Hmm.
because it's an athletic department facility,
Right.
and and there's an acceptance. I'd rather run 10 concerts than raise student fees, or like you said,
That's fair.
steal from student fees or steal from something else. So I think it's all about balancing revenue. It's about presenting a professional enterprise. Athletics is an enterprise. The hospitals are an enterprise. You want the best doctors in your hospital system. You want the best researchers. Pay them according. You're not going to have as many researchers who operate within a public job. They're
Right.
going to want to be paid. I know the big thing I've heard recently is IP from university efforts. Someone will invent something as a student or a researcher or a grad student at a university that might be $1 billion product, and they might have signed a contract that said that's the schools, and you may get nothing out of it. University of Nebraska, not our favorite school, but a great rival, invented the padded walls on racetracks. And I don't know if the guy that invented the padded safety wall at NASCAR tracks is making any money off of
Right.
all the padded walls on the NASCAR tracks. My point is simply, I love to put people in a position of success and give them an enhancement for their skill and talent. And I don't think we can do it the old-fashioned way in a cute little I heard the Kentucky folks talk about the AD's job isn't just to hire a good old coach and tell him good luck. It's a $1 billion business. It needs to be run with as much effort and care as possible by talented business people who have innovation in mind. And that's what I was promoting it in the past as kind of a wild idea. Kentucky pulled the trigger. I believe it will happen soon. And I believe there will be pressure to kind of say, why is football going this way when academics, with the whole enrollment cliffs and all the other concerns, government grants, are going the other way?
West Virginia, it was yesterday or the day before, or maybe it was even last weekend. The thing with Israel and Iran sort of took over the time for a bit, but they announced a $250 ASB fee for athletics on top of the rest of their surcharge now, and the students don't have a choice about it. It's not participatory. It is like part of now going to that school. You have to pay that $250. I know at other schools, at bigger brands, they are even charging even more money. So if the schools are bending over backwards to try to get blood from a rock, and I would say squeezing your athlete or squeezing your students is one way to do that.
Yeah.
Can't we get more creative ways? I like the concert idea. I think that's fine. Wear and tear on the stadiums is definitely going to be a thing. But shouldn't we be looking 2, 3 steps down the road? Because eventually these sort of chic ideas aren't going to be chic anymore. Everybody else is going to be doing them, and it's going to be an arms race to the next thing
Yep.
and to the next thing.
Yep. There's no doubt that when Kentucky said we have 8 to 10 more revenue sources, you kind of really wish they would kept talking to say what are the next sources. I
Right.
believe there's a bunch in the works. I think you commented about how well BYU could present its own game day camera work and announcers and
Right.
stuff like that. So depending on the future of realignment, the future of, and I'll be clear, this idea relates to my passion for Colorado to be sure to be in the big boys tent.
Right.
I want to make sure that we were down for so long. I know people think, well, what if Prime leaves? Colorado in the 90s sold out 53,000 every game, was a
Sure.
national champion, and then we chose to hurt ourselves, self damage ourselves, our brand.
Right.
We're back and we're interested now with the boosters and everybody to be legit. But as much as we're all Big 12 fans and Big 12 members, the Big 12 has to take us to the top, or we have to be prepared individually to go to the top. BYU has shown that they're interested. Texas Tech is interested. We're interested. So, whatever path is next, I do believe we need to be positioned differently. And I don't think, as we currently sit with the way the House will settle in, the way um, most everybody here in Colorado believes that most of our other sports are at risk without a doubt, and that if I were an AD, I might turn all my other sports into Division 3. Why would I be Division 1 in a certain sport that just can't pay for itself,
Or make them
or
club sports.
make them club sports
Yeah.
and manage? I I don't know. The Title IX will be a key question about how this would help or hurt or not make a
Right.
change to Title IX. I argue that you could go to court and issue the idea of this is performance and talent. That as long as we have equal opportunities, I don't know how the revenues paid to an athlete shouldn't reflect their talent capabilities. If a player wants to, if a, an athlete wants to say I'm worth the same as that person, can you literally prove that the reason 53,000 bought a ticket for $200 a ticket to watch, Julian Lewis play quarterback, or your fantastic new quarterback play, it would be equal to? And I love the small sport. I'm a small sport guy. I'm a soccer, lacrosse. We
Mhm.
have an amazing championship ski team. Our cross country team is provided most of the Olympians. So I'm a fan of equal opportunity, but easily innovation and those types of things have to be rewarded without a doubt.
Two more questions for you. First one is, who do you think has an advantage, if there is even an advantage to be talked about? Is it a private school that basically not only is it sort of protected from a lot of FOIA and freedom, other things that have to do with reporting, and are either profitable or they're not based on their own spending, not tied to some other state apparatus? Is that, if you had a choice and you were going to pick one or the other, would you be a private school right now, or would you be a public school with some of the ability to tap into tax dollars in case you run into trouble?
I would want to be private every day. The whole concept of public school and public funding and political situations and budgets and all of the opinions that are out there, public schools are under attack. Public schools are being weakened, um, and we need to keep them supported. But I think this evolution is going to be a natural thing to be able to match what a private school can do. There is absolutely no doubt that SMU, BYU, who how much I admire BYU,
Sure.
um, Notre Dame is in an absolute massive position. I
Right.
believe Notre Dame is staying independent because their attitude is they're bigger, better than anybody, even
Right.
Ohio State,
Right.
and they have more flexibility. So I would want to be private. This is why I think the public schools have to be innovative. They have to realize what's going to happen to themselves. I do believe 4-year college, even my kids have made the choice that it wasn't for them. 2-year college was enough. And then
Right.
you educate yourself as you go through life. I think the 4-year schools are going to have to get real creative about, I want to have more hospitals. I want to have more tech related things. I want to have more, things that are in the, community colleges immediately happen at the public schools. So my idea also relates to the idea that these public schools do have assets that could either be successful or could fail. If one of the big public schools chooses to not play football, what happens to their football stadium that under normal circumstances would have cost $500 million to build?
Right.
So what is it? What do? You raise it and put something else, or that's just a crazy thought. So staying relevant, investing in your football program, um, getting your football stadium to be the best it can be. I feel like there's so much asset value that even investors would look at your stadium as an investable asset, as a reason to improve your
Interesting.
facilities, and then continue to go from there. In the basketball, Kansas's district is all about creating additional revenue. I know for sure there's pressure in Boulder for us to charge a game day tax, that there should be a 2% sales tax on game day in the entire city of Boulder, so that you are able to get revenues from the days in which we're bringing an entire new city
Right.
to the city of Boulder. I'm sure Provo could feel the same way and say to themselves, you're going to benefit from the football games, you're going to benefit from the concerts, and any of these activation days, let's put a little tax and let's have that be part of us all improving. Let's raise all boats at the same time. But the answer, without a doubt, the private schools, in theory, are NFL light franchise opportunities. They're
Right.
private. They have great donors, and you have the agility to do whatever you want and be whoever you want to be. I did want to circle back to the student ticket thing. It's a
Sure.
big issue here. Our football games are so popular that every single student, I mean, literally, every single student wants to go to a football game at Colorado. Our stadium is 53,000. If 25,000 students want to
Yeah.
go to a game and their tickets used to be $20,
Yeah.
the problem, Nathan, the reason the student ticket thing is just the reality of the person in the next row paid 200 and you paid 20. Yes, you're a student. Yes, the students are critical. Our students are amazing, absolutely amazing, always lit up in some way. And so they are valuable, but our stadium capacity, if we were Ohio State and had 90,000 seats, 20,000 seats out of 90 is no big deal. But 20,000 out of 53 is beginning to make people realize, how could we expand? What are we going to do? Very delicate subject, because you don't want to ruin the momentum of students at the games, but things that you can try to work out with maybe a public private to expand. Our west stands need to be improved and added on like you wouldn't believe. And let's see what'll happen.
Okay, last word. So let's assume that Fergie has been the czar of college football for the
Yes.
next 5 years. We're going into 2030, 31. Um, I'm sort of not trying to be savant like, but I think more consolidation is coming in college football, not less. Meaning, the next 5, 6 years is a sort of prove it time period.
Mm-hmm.
Either going to commit and you're going to be all in, and you want to be one of those schools competing for the highest championship, or you simply can't keep up. You just cannot raise the resources you need, and you have to make other different decisions. Do you think a public-private partnership will bridge the gap for enough of these schools that are maybe on the edge, or do you think it's there's going to continue to be deficits and people are going to drop off?
I think that the best decision to make that would be now, and not to go halfway and realize that you debt spent or you went over your skis and then you couldn't become part of the big boys.
Right.
I would prefer that this whole consolidation realignment happened sooner than later, because I do believe it's actually becoming a huge problem. That the idea of, if you're not going to treat the Big 12 and the ACC at the same level, if you're the TV people or whoever you are, make that decision as soon as possible. I would argue that there are many schools that are going to surprise us that might literally drop out of Division One just because they ultimately said, we can't do this. Some schools, their market won't grow enough. Like, even if you're as creative as possible, and I hate to point any of the schools out, but the reason Oregon State and Washington State are in the position they're in, the only reason that Cal is in a position it's in, the fight between a Kansas and a Kansas State, in a state that's just not that big, how many more new fans are you going to create in those marketplaces? And it's one of the reasons that I will fight for Colorado, I had a really interesting back and forth with Ute about the comparing a Utah to a Colorado. In 1990, when we won the national title, the state of Colorado had about 3.9 million people, and Utah had about maybe 1.8. And Utah is obviously a hot market. Salt Lake is unreal on business development.
Yeah.
It's just in a beautiful place. But you're still just achieving a little over 3.5 million,
Yes.
people. Denver, Colorado Front Range in Colorado now has 5.9 million. In
Yeah.
just since 1990, we've added that many people. Ironically, has enhanced our sports scene. You go to an Avalanche game against the Boston Bruins, it's half Boston Bruins.
Right.
And you ask the people, did you come from Boston to watch a game? It's like, no, I've lived in Denver now for 15 years because I didn't
Right.
want to live in Boston.
Right.
My point is that you got to sort out the markets. I hope and I believe strongly that there's strength for about 50 to 60 top brands, and then the other folks will be able to settle into what they're able to afford and what's able to happen. The only way it's going to happen for the public schools is to have their football or their basketball, women's, whoever can go into this public private partnership, this new enterprise entity will be very successful. I do want to be very clear that I love college football because kids are going to college and actually becoming better. And if I go back to the Juilliard example, they go to Juilliard to dance and play instruments and to be whoever, but they go to school. They actually learn communication. They actually
Right.
learn how to be a better person, better communication, better how to sell themselves. And then they go on to their skill. I want these football players, and there's a chance. I know Colorado's talking about creating a specific degree or pathway for our football players where that really focuses on public speaking, communication, technology, everything possible, to make them more valuable in their field. But I would want them to also, if there's, we have some smart kids, you have amazing smart kids, still want them to think about pre med and law and all the things that they can accomplish. But as a package, I wanted to look, and I'll throw out one of the things that I think you saw in my pre notes would be the Bundesliga. So I'm a soccer guy. The Bundesliga is the only league, unlike the others, who hasn't sold out to PE. They have the 50+1 rule, meaning that the city owns the club, but you can bring in some outside support to make the club more successful. But always remember your roots. You're a community club. You want these people to be successful. You want the fans to be treated correctly and not be gouged. And so the Bundesliga is a great model. Do they make less revenue than the Premier League? Yes, the Premier League's a Cadillac wide open thing, but I love what they do. And the other thing I make a reference to is the Green Bay Packers, smallest market in the NFL, a legendary brand. They make just as much money as the others, and they make the NFL great, but they do it as shareholder owned or nonprofit entity that needs to be run well. So I'm kind of saying I want to smash all the best ideas together, help the public school, help the private school. I mean, in theory, BYU does not need to create a public private partnership. You are the private partnership. Your athletic department represents your school and operates as best they can, and they're doing a great job. Colorado, if we want to play the game, and all the others, Kansas, all the others that want to make this run at it, um, we need a PPP. We need to bring in the creativity. Coach Prime gives us a unique opportunity. I don't know if you know who Smack Entertainment is,
I
SMAC.
I do.
That's Michael Strahan and all the people that produce, even Kevin Durant. Um, there's talent that could be brought in so many ways to make us even farther and stronger. But I realize, in my mind, that can't happen without constant board over approvals or just saying that's not in our scope. So I hope this starts the conversation. I can't wait to see the Kentucky thing play out a little bit. I can't wait to predict who the next school is going to be. And I'm a kind of person, I love process. I know you're kind of like, you're a project manager. I'm a project manager. I love to know where we're going, how we're going to get there. And I think you and I are still a little concerned. Are we going to be treated like we should be with the big boys or will we have to fight to a certain point, or will we end up having to change our goals? And
We will have to find out. That's what I would say.
that's why
Time
we're
will
here.
tell. Not going to solve it today. He is Fergie, and I appreciate you coming on today and joining me for this sit down. Anybody who wants to find you, how do they do that?
I am just not that much online. So to me, I need to step up a little more. Have them contact you, and
Okay.
you can contact me. And then in the near future, I'll get more out there. I'm so busy with business and family that I really have learned to not be too much online until I need to be.
There
So
you go.
I'll do better.
That makes sense. Well, I appreciate it. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Go Buffs.
Thank you. Go Cougars.
We'll see you later. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye bye.
Peace.